Yeah, everyone. It was actually 7 years ago that I sat in a meeting just like this and just said Hummingbot for the first time. Hummingbot is open source software. It's just basically public software people can download on GitHub. And so I'm glad you can actually buy a lot of that moment, 7 years ago. So today I'm going to talk on what I call the trading agent loop, or how to build Claude code for trading. So Hummingbot is one of the most widely used open source frameworks for crypto algo traders and market makers. So within the past year and a half, we see up $47 billion volume reported for trading. And this is across 100K instances, across 318 different exchanges and blockchains. Officially, our open source code base only supports about 50 exchange or blockchains. So a lot of these are kind of just built by the community for their own use. Who are these people? A lot of them are public projects looking to market make their own coding. They're individuals looking to farm rewards or do else. And frankly, a lot of market makers who, maybe like graduate to something that's more professional, but they usually want to start with some piece of software and get you already connect to lots of exchanges. We have lots of open source strategies, which makes it a natural place to start. And so it was open source 7 years ago. And so now it's basically me and my team just maintain open source projects. And we make money from the exchange themselves. Because when you run Hummingbot on Binance or OKX and other exchanges, some of that fee comes back to us. It sustains our foundation. But the question is, do you still need Hummingbot when you today Claude can pretty much build anything you want for you? And to be perfectly frank, not really. I've tried this myself where I say, Claude, build a market making bot that runs on Binance. And 10 minutes later, you have a simple market making bot, that basically works. It's not frankly bot, but a lot of times, it's something that you own, you can customize to go on top of it. And we've actually seen it in our revenue numbers. This year, actually, we saw our revenue go down quite a lot from exchanges because I do think that people are just using AI to bypass MEV. And you know what? This is not from the system that we have. Pretty much every piece of open source software out there is at risk of being disintermediated by AI. So the question is, what can we do about this? Well, I've been a big AI user since the beginning. Because to me, one of the biggest changes AI has had in the past few years is a transition from chatbots, like the original version of ChatGPT, to proper coding agents, like Claude Code. So the question is, what happened there? What makes Claude Code so effective at building things for you? And to me, it's all about the coding agent loop. So when you run Claude Code, it's going to use a bunch of tools. And these tools do 4 things really well. The first is it takes a prompt, it figures out what you're trying to do. It determines your intent. Second, it reads the files that access you, the velocity and context on what it's changing. Third, it edits those files. And fourth, it tests the changes. And that fourth step is very critical because writing unit tests, by verifying what they did in Playwright, they can know whether the change they made actually solve what they're trying to do. And if not, it will go back and loop through each of these 4 steps until it's right. So to me, this is the breakthrough that turned chatbots into proper coding agents that's going to build for you. So the question is, can we build a similar agentic loop for trading? And I think so. So here is what I think the trading agent loop looks like. The first thing you should do is define a testable strategy. The second thing is using collecting data that you want to access on. The third thing is you want to backtest that strategy against the data. And the fourth step, which is very important, is you want to actually test that backtesting strategy against real market data. So let's roll down into each of these 4 steps to figure out exactly what they entail. First, define the strategy. You need to define something you can actually test. So let's say the user says, make money to make no mistakes. Now, so ideally, the agent should be taking that and saying, okay, do you want to do a directional strategy, an arbitrage strategy, a marketing strategy? What is the goal? Are you trying to maximize the Sharpe ratio over a specific time frame? What kind of metrics do we use to evaluate this? And then you should define the logic of that strategy and actually basically know exactly what to do every thing. And then you should define what are the changeable parameters of the strategy. For example, which trade there, the amount, the spreads, so forth, and also what cannot be changed. And finally, importantly, you want to know the guardrails. You want to know what the risk room is, and also when you just want your agents to stop trading because of parameter errors. That's step one. So after the step, what you should have is a markdown file along with a bunch of configurations. Second thing, you need to collect data. So first, you may want to collect, let's say, candles data, liquidations, open interest, whatever is driving the actual hypothesis you had in step one. You want to make sure you can access that data. Next, you do each temple and convert that raw data into signals or some other data structure you want to handle. Third, you want to clean that data, denoisify it, make sure it's actually properly testable. And fourth, you don't want to stop at one time. If you want to move, you probably need to keep on collecting this data over time. Backtesting. So backtesting is running this strategy through stored data. So first, you probably want to split into in sample, out sample, walk through the strategy logic, respecting guardrails. You can measure against the strategy metrics. And finally, you probably want to sweep all the parameters and prevent bullshit. So finally, promotion of live trading. You want a smoke test, which means for a paper trade, then trade with a small amount of nominal size, monitor your fills, your P&L, and other real data points, compare rated data sets, but also assess like, were you budget? Or did it actually work because your strategy assumptions actually were validated? And finally, you want to scale what actually works and kill the business. So just like trading, just like coding agents, this is because most likely it's not going to work the first time. You probably, when you run a line, say you might even start something else. Maybe you can adjust the strategy. You may need to collect more data. You might need to re-access issues from else. And so ideally what you want is a harness that can help you do all these steps in isolation and then do that in parallel across the strategies. This process is exactly what client hedge funds do are doing today. But they're throwing people and process at this problem. That's why they have researchers, engineers, data scientists, traders. All these people are doing this right now in every single quant trading firm. So the question is, the first thing is can Claude do this for you already? In my experience, not that well. Because number one, it doesn't really have a domain expertise to actually help you define a proper strategy. It's not very code efficient. You're trying to run through a table budget in like half an hour if you really try to do this. Another question is how do you actually get the data? What's available? Can I collect that kind of stuff? Is it going to run over a long period of time autonomously or this stuff? Another one is speed execution. Does it actually execute trades for you? Does it know how to do that? And most importantly is security. If you're putting this on a server and you're automatic signing with a key, how do you make sure that key is not compromised? So all these questions are why you built something called Condor. So Condor is an agentic harness that uses Xplainbot as an execution layer, and it provides an entity server, a bunch of stuff, and hopefully it can help you execute this trading issue. So the source, completely free, and yeah, you can already check it out. It's very much a work in progress though, so don't be surprised if you have any issues, but that's why we're doing this. We want people to see that. Also to promote it, we're working with our exchange partners to do a hackathon called the Agentic. So these 7 exchanges are giving away $20K in prizes And then it's a hackathon, which will happen starts tomorrow, takes place over 1 month period, and you can basically build an agent, they use its 1 week exchanges. Afterwards, we'll work with them to select the agents, and the top agents will compete in a live stream competition right before Sophie 23. We still have one more sponsor slot, so if anyone wants to sponsor, please come find me. But this is our ways to just get feedback on Contour to see what people build, and then hopefully to help us build a better course.